Welcome back to the Contacts Coaching Podcast. We are joined today by Ed Buford, Director of Athletics, Arsenal Tech High School in Indianapolis, Indiana. Coach, thanks for being here today.
Justin, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. It's pretty cold outside in Indy, so I'm enjoying this 4-degree weather. It's snowing on the ground, but all in all, I don't have any complaints. Thanks for being here.
Well, it's funny that we talked about that a little bit before, and I'm sitting here in like a down vest, and it's like 49, and you're at 4 degrees, and you're just in a regular jacket. So we know who's tough and who's soft, but we don't need to get into that. Let's go into your career here. Take us through the journey. How did you get started coaching? How did you move into administration? What was the impetus going way back to little Ed? What was the path like? Talk us through the journey and the bumps and bruises along the way.
That's a great question. So I'm born and raised in Helena, West Helena, Arkansas. It's on the banks of the Mississippi River, about an hour of Memphis, Tennessee. And I'm the youngest of 4. I have 3 older siblings. And by the way, I'm the only boy. My parents instilled in us early that education was one of the things that was highly important in our household. So my parents were both educators. They both taught public schools. My mom taught either 27 or 28 years. My dad taught 34 years, and they have both retired. So at a young age, I understood what the value of education would be. And I knew I didn't want to be a teacher. And that was one of the things that they said that they would regret. They always wanted to be on the admin side, but they found their passion teaching. My mom was a math teacher, and my dad taught building trades, both in Arkansas and in Mississippi. Just from there, ended up playing sports all the way through high school, and was fortunate enough to play college basketball at the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, where the majority of my family, including myself, we all graduated from there. So if I do the math, Justin, I believe it's over 55 or 58 people on both sides of my mom and dad's family who completed their degrees at the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. So was able to get a lot of experiences early, attending basketball games, attending football games. And one of the probably special moments for me was every coach that I had in high school back home in Arkansas, they all were graduates of the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. So it was almost a destiny for me to go and attend a school and see what that environment was about. And from there, like I said, I had the pleasure of playing men's college basketball at the Division I level. That really gave me an insight on what I wanted to do, right? So I knew going in, I knew I was going to major in something dealing with athletics. My undergrad is in parks and community recreations, with an emphasis on facilities management. And then after I graduated, I moved to Indianapolis and I started my career. Started working as a teen counselor at IUPUI for one of their summer programs. And then from there, I took a girls JV head basketball job at Whiteland High School. From there, Cal Ship gave me the autonomy to learn. So when I came in, I was fairly young. Gave me the head JV. Actually, he gave me varsity assistant first, and then gave me the head JV job. And he let me run with it. I was able to learn from him, learn how to do scouting reports and learn how to do film breakdown. But he let me build my own career from some of his experiences. And then, from there, went back and got my master's in athletic administration at Ball State University. And I was able to see what the athletic director side was. I ended up taking a job at one of the local schools here in Indianapolis as the interim AD. And then I took an assistant AD job from there. I was only there for about a year or so. And then I took an interim. The interim was first. And then I took a volunteer assistant AD role for 2 years. I made $0. But that was part of my plan. So I was at the school, I was coaching boys basketball at the time. I had left on the girls' side, and I wanted to experience what the difference was between girls basketball and boys basketball. So, I was fortunate enough to coach an Indiana All-Star on the girls side. And then I was really fortunate enough to coach an all-state player on the boys side. So then that kind of sparked my interest a little bit more to stay on the athletic at men's side and not go back to the coaching ranks. I don't wanted to coach long time. I always wanted to be, AD or assistant AD or work in the athletic office. So having those experiences gave me an opportunity to really further my career there. Then from there, I took a job at George Washington, where countless legends were student athletes there. Most recently, George McGinnis, one of the greats, one of the all-time greats in the NBA and in the ABA. He recently passed, but he was a state champion on the 1969 team there at George Washington. The job came available. AD Scott Hicks, who is also a legend here in the state of Indiana, he thought enough of me to give me an opportunity. And from there, I was able to run with it. I was able to make sure that the student athletes were academically eligible. Let's make sure that the student athletes had college insight. So he gave me every single thing and was like, hey, coach, we really enjoy what you bring to the table. Now let's see what you can do. So then the Arsenal Tech job came available. I was at George Washington for a year. Then the Arsenal Tech job came available and threw my name in it, spoke with my circle, with my inner circle, and then I spoke with my professional circle. And they all thought it was the best idea for me to, at least throw my name in the hat at Arsenal Tech. And it kind of brings us here today. Tech is the 28th largest school in the state of Indiana. We operate over 20 sports, both on the boys and girls side. It's a really, really cool place to be, a really cool place. So we're putting some things in place to make sure that, Tech is not a forgotten thought.
So you're in the perfect situation. If I remember our conversation in Orlando, this is middle of year 2, or where are you
so I'm getting ready to complete year 1. April 10th, 2024 will be year 1.
So you started before the school year even ended, which is perfect.
Yeah.
So you just gave us the resume. You have a background in athletics. Your parents were educators. You played college athletics. You coached both genders of basketball. You were an assistant AD. You did the hard work of what we all did at that point, cutting our teeth, which was working for free or no money. I joked that my first coaching job was I was paid $6,000 for the year as a full-time assistant in the NCAA Division II. So we know what that's like. But what did you realize on April 10th? Is that what you just said?
Yep, April 10th, 2023.
What did you realize on that date? Even though you felt prepared and your professional and personal circle said, hey, this is it, we're ready. But you got in there and you were like, hair blown back. I ain't ready for this. I am, but I need to figure this out real quick.
Yeah. Justin, one of the things that was probably on my side that I failed to mention, I was also I worked at Arsenal Tech prior to being the AD. So I was in the Future Center, which is the college and career department, and I worked alongside of athletics. While I was doing that, I was also AD at another high school in Indianapolis. So coming in, I was the new guy, but I was the old face. So I had already knew some people on campus. I knew several people in the athletic department. So I just kind of came in and I wanted things to continue as they were so I can get an understanding of what we need to do better or what we need to do moving forward. So I don't think I was caught off guard, but I will tell you this, going from maybe like the counseling side, the college and career side to athletics, although I was always in athletics, I stayed in athletics while I was still on the counseling side, the magnitude of the work was probably the biggest thing, right? Again, operating all of those sports, making sure that we have officials per game and making sure, that the fan base, which are our students, making sure that our staff was in tune and aware of certain things that would probably be the biggest thing that we had to endure.
Okay, so now we are coming up. You're 10 months in. What else has come across your plate that you were like, all right, I can handle this, but I got to do some digging. Did not expect this to land on my plate. Wasn't thinking about this, and I had to figure this one out. And the reason I asked, Ed, is this whole thing was started as a digital database of mentorship. So it's like, okay, what are the things that in year one on the job that you got to knock the training wheels off quicker than you want to, per se, and they've created these learning opportunities that you can share with others.
I mentioned our school is well over 100+ years, right? So with that, we have to have some facility upgrades. Well, in my previous stops, I never had the opportunity to sit in those meetings for facility enhancement, right? The AD always did that. And when I was the AD at other schools, we had fairly new athletic facilities. Very first thing, when I get the job, they rip out the track. Maybe, I don't know, a month or so after. Like I say, I knew I was going to inherit that because George Washington is also a part of the district. So having those same conversations while at George Washington, so we all knew that. But being the face, that was totally different. But the first thing that I did, called up my principal, and I called up my district AD. So my principal is a former high-level boys basketball coach here in the state, right? He coached at Lawrence North. He coached at Lawrence Central. He coached at Park Tudor. He coached at Fishers. So he had a wealth of knowledge, and he has been in those meetings to where those infrastructure meetings where we're getting new facility enhancements. So he gave me a list of things to kind of look for. Then I jumped on the phone with our district AD, and he was giving me the same thing. So all three of us were on the same page when it came down to, hey, here's how we're going to do things. As far as the new facility improvements, here are some things that we will do. Here's some things that we're trying to do. So yeah, just having those two guys who are very athletically sound was probably a sounding board for me.
Well, I think the important thing there, is that you reached out to resources to help you figure out what you didn't know. And often as we get into this and we're young, inexperienced, there's a vulnerability that's lacking to ask for help. And I think what you just added is one of the most important things. It's like, I've never built a track before. Let me call somebody that has. Are there some other situations you've encountered over the years where you've had to deploy that same approach that has been useful for you?
Yeah. Academic eligibility is always something that comes apart, right? So again, with my principal, he's been a principal. He's been an assistant principal. He was a high-level coach, right? He got 30+ years of experience at the interscholastic level. So I just pick up the phone and I call him instantly. Or I'll go over to the Arsenal where his office is, and we'll just have a conversation. So his door is always open, right? He may or may not be available, but his door is always open. And if he is unavailable, he makes sure to call you back within maybe an hour or so. But he's a person that if I don't know something or if I'm unsure of something, the experiences that he has, even if he doesn't know the answer to it, the experiences that he has, I'm very confident and comfortable with him sharing those for an answer for me, for us to come to a collective.
Yeah, let's go into that for a minute. In talking with some of my guests, when I asked, what are the things that are important when you're looking at jobs, one of the things that comes up is mission and vision alignment with your administration. And sometimes it doesn't come up, which is a little bit surprising because at the end of the day, there are good jobs and bad jobs. And it doesn't mean that you can have state championship level success, but it means that there's alignment between all the parties involved. Can you talk a little bit about that as you went from place to place, what you saw, what you experienced that led you to believe where you are is a good fit, and obviously what you're talking about with your principal's background? That's helpful. But what are some of the other things that led you to believe, hey, you know what? For me, at this age and stage of my career, this is the perfect spot.
You know, tech was set up. It was ready to go, right? So from an athletic staff, you had a secretary, you had an assistant AD that was set and ready to go. I also have a I have two full-time assistant ADs. I have a full-time secretary, right? I also have two full-time athletic coordinators. And then last year was the first year that we implemented an athletic advisor to where her full-time job is still a counselor, but she wanted to be a part of the athletic experience. And she reached out to me, was like, hey, I'm willing to help you all out only in the athletic advisement committee. So, you know, just having that thought process. And then when I looked at the job at Tech, we offer countless vocational departments. So one of the things that our district does pretty well is emphasize 3 E's: enlistment, enrollment, and employment. So thinking about a job and aligning myself with the vision of the school, it was already ready. I just needed to be in place. And then, you know, when I think about the history and the nostalgia behind the school, our alumni association, I don't think we can operate a department without them, especially not my department. So for an example, we have one of our former basketball players is going into the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame. I reached out to our alumni association instantly to inform them, but to also say, like, hey, what do we want to do with this? I know what we're going to do from our end, but from your end, from her academic, from her curriculum end, you all still have a really, really big hand in that. So how do we want to approach this? And our alumni looked at it within 24 hours. It was like, hey, we will take lead on this. This is something that, you know, we're fortunate enough to do. So, man, you know, just having those entities in place really made the job, especially in year one, a lot easier than what most people will encounter in year one.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm curious, when you said you also have athletic coordinators, right? So assistant athletic director, fine. What's an athletic coordinator?
So an athletic coordinator is a person who can step in and operate games. They can step in and operate the concession stand or the tickets. So they are a multi-purpose person. They can also announce, right? So in the event that our main people don't show up, our athletic coordinators are already on site, right? So if we need them to do anything, crowd control or anything that we need, right? Run grades, they're able to step right in and take care of some of that for us.
So I'm going to go a little bit into the minutia here because I'm curious, because every site is different, right? Obviously, in the resources that they deploy in each department, and every state's different, every school district is different. So if I heard you correctly, you got two full-time AD assistants. That's what they do, plus a secretary. Are the athletic coordinators, that's their full-time gig too, or they're doing other things and they help out there? How does that all shake out in the resources of the school?
No, that's a great question. So yeah, the ACs do other things within the building. So their full-time job may be, I don't know, maybe the librarian, or it may be something, it may be a teacher. Their positions with the athletic coordinators, just a stipend position just for those seasons. And we have the autonomy to make it where they can do it all 3 seasons.
Got it. So for those that are listening, when you are struggling to find help, that is so needed, desperately needed at times, right? Tap into your faculty and figure out a way to add a stipend to your budget that you can give them gratuity for helping out in that way. Love that as a strategy. And you probably didn't even think about that because it was already in place. But for those of us that are listening, there are ways to tap into community that you already have on campus that know the kids, that obviously then would help with crowd control, right? All the things that we worry about at this level. What would you say?
Justin, I will add to that.
Yeah.
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. I will add to, if they are on the campus already, they already have a relationship with the students. They already have a relationship with the majority of the coaches, especially if coaches are on campus, right? And I would probably say the last thing is they have some form of athletic experience, whether they were a player, they are a coach, their daughter or their son are playing. They have some knowledge of what athletics looks like. So just having those type of people around definitely ensures the athletic experience for all.
No doubt. And I would assume during my time in my first 10 years of my teaching career when I taught at a public school, right, you have your contract hours, whatever they happen to be, and then people are going home, right? Some people want to be involved. They just need to be asked. They need permission to get involved. And so put that out to your group, see who wants to participate. Because if not, right, what are they doing with the rest of their afternoons? And maybe they have some hobby that they're super into, but maybe they don't, and they just want to feel part of the group. Let me pivot on this and go to, in addition to involvement, what are some of the best things that you do in your program that has an impact on the culture that you're trying to create? So either specific programs when you were coaching basketball, not necessarily at Tech, but in general, like, hey, we do this, and I try to share this with all of my coaches because it has this transformational impact. Or things you've seen your coaches do in the last 10 months. What would you offer up to coaches and administrators together that, like, hey, you know what? These are a couple of things that I've seen work really well in building cohesiveness and core values and things that are important to maintaining your culture.
I would say the biggest thing would probably be equitable practices, right? So a lot of times football and basketball teams are maybe the most known teams on campus, or maybe the most known teams in the community. One of the things that I'm really big on is giving everybody the same platform. So if there's something that, our football team is doing, maybe we don't do it the same way, but we at least extend that invitation to our girls swim team. Like, hey, there's a community service event. We don't have to necessarily have everybody to participate in it, but football over the years, or boys basketball over the years, have been our main participants. What we'd like to do is offer this invitation to everybody. Once we get signups, then we'll make a decision on who participates. But I'm huge on being consistent and using some of those equitable practices to ensure that all of our student athletes feel welcome.
Yeah, I think that's often overlooked. And as you mentioned, you have football and basketball, for the most part, are the, let's call it, feature sports, right? They generally draw the most attendance. They usually, and be it because they're the favorite sports, or it is just convenient that they play at 7 o'clock at night and people don't have conflicts, whatever the case is, making sure that, hey, this team doesn't get this and this team doesn't get this just because of that, right? How do you create that equity and accessibility for the other sports and for the other athletes? I think that's huge because, one, it shows commitment to program, right? And two, it allows teams to lean into whatever additional things that they want to do that maybe they didn't feel were possible, right? Based on the history and tradition. So how do you implement that, right? How do you go and encourage maybe some long-time programs that have done it a particular way to embrace all that the school has to offer and all that you can do as a support person?
I'll give you an example that we recently went through. Had a community outreach to reach out, and they wanted to partner with our football team to do a fundraiser. Well, as I was speaking with both coaches, head football coach and one of our other head coaches on campus, the other coach stated, like, hey, what do I need to do in order to be a part of that? So, Justin, my job was really simple. All I did was call up the person who reached out to football, and I asked, hey, is there any way that maybe you can sit down with several other coaches who are inquiring about this? And they didn't have any problem doing so. I think, just having those one-on-one conversations, right? And letting people know the type of program that you're trying to build, and let them know what the overall outcome that you're hoping and wanting for. I think most people will support, especially on the equitable side. I think most people will support those endeavors. But yeah, just giving people the same platform though. And if I have to be the person leading the platform, I don't have an issue with that, right? But what I do want is I want everybody to feel like their team matters. Like, hey man, Mr. Buford really looks out for our team, not just a specific team.
Yeah, and that's so important. And I circle back to this all the time in my own space where I'm coaching a team. I coached the boys basketball team for the last 8 years and was going to be out and just being an administrator this year. But I find myself now coaching the girls. And, part of the thing for me is the idea of optics. And even if you do everything right, it's still, well, he's the basketball coach, so they get to do X, Y, and Z. And it's like, no, like all of us can do this. I just happen to have my hands in it and I'm a little bit more organized, but this is available to anybody, right? So how do you ensure and how do you educate and how do you help people realize that, look, yeah, you've done it this way all the time, but here's what the ask is from the kids, and how do I partner with you to make this kid centric?
So you know what I like to do? I like to speak to students first. Way before I make any suggestions to coaches, I like to speak to students to see what their input is. Like, hey, do you all want maybe new uniforms or new shoes, or what is it that you all are maybe missing, or what are some of the things that you all need in order to make your athletic experience comfortable? So once I have a list, then I go back to the coaches and then I start to talk to them like, hey, have you talked to your players, or have you talked to X and X player about maybe having some of these? And depending on what the coaches say, right? So yeah, coach, we've talked, we had that conversation, then we'll know how to maneuver. But if they haven't, then that's when we come in and we sit down as a collective and we try to hash some of those things out. Maybe you can't get everything, but when I speak to the coaches, I want to make sure that they know that, hey, like our kids see disparities, right? They see what other kids are getting. If we can shine that light on them, we don't have to give them everything that they're asking, because some of those are probably impossible to provide. But if we can give them a minimum of certain things, then we can take that back to whatever sponsor, whoever that may be, and we can have those conversations. But we can also have those conversations when those sponsors come in, talk directly to those student athletes. I'm huge on the student experience, right? So as adults, we can figure out whatever it is that we need to do. But if we're going to be guiding students, I think the students have to have a hand in it. Actually, they have to have two hands in it. We need to be the people who are in the background, possibly doing all the work, but they need to be the front runners.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, the whole thing is about students. The whole thing is about, depending on the age of your school, maybe it's 4-year-olds to 18-year-olds, maybe it's 14 to 18-year-olds, but it's like, look, how do we not let adult problems get in the way of kids, and how do we serve them? And I love the fact that you're asking them, hey, what would make your experience better, right? That's a great question. It's open-ended. It's not targeted at anything. It's just, hey, how can I support you? And I think ultimately, as coaches, I'm guilty of this. Like, we don't ask that of our kids enough. So I love that you're putting that out there. Grab onto that. Throw that question out. I came back from Orlando and we had sat in a breakout session. And one of the questions that was posed is, go back and ask your staff, what's my greatest weakness as an athletic director? And then tell your coaches to do the same thing and ask their players. And I came back and did that, and it was super informative. And I've tried to use that as I move forward to guide me. But there's a vulnerability piece there that you got to be willing to take the smoke, right? So I think those are great lessons that you offered there. Let me ask this, and it's totally kind of off what our normal talk track would be, but growing up in the South and then basically your whole life around Arkansas Pine Bluff, and now you're in Indianapolis. How has your background as a Southerner informed how you interact in, let's call it the Midwest or whatever they call Indiana? What has that shift been like? And I know you told me privately it's very similar, but I'm curious for the listeners, like, how do you tap into those values? What's been a challenge? What hasn't? Because it is a different geographic location, and it definitely probably has a different culture.
You know, being born and raised in the South, it teaches you different values, right? So in the South, you can walk up to a random person and speak and have a conversation. Hey, how you doing? Right? I just try to use who I am and what experiences I have in the South. I brought those here. My sisters are also huge in my professional and personal career. They live here in Indianapolis, right? So I'm able to bounce. Like if I have an idea that I get from one of my mentors in the South, I'll share it with my sisters first to see if it aligns, because they've been here way longer than I have, but to see if it aligns with some of the things that people value here in Indianapolis, right? Like down South, you're able to make a decision very quickly. Here in the Midwest, you may need some additional assistance with that, right? So I go directly to my sisters when I have an issue, or even if I have a thought, to say, hey, I'm thinking about possibly doing this. What do you think? Because they also have the same role, right? They were born and raised in Arkansas, graduates of Arkansas Pine Bluff, but we're far different in age. So they're able to see certain things that I just can't see. And once they provide those answers to me, I take that application and I just kind of pause for maybe, a day or so before I do anything with it, right? But having those small moments of success, and I think that leads into the next phase, which is the communication department. Athletics is a big department, so you got to be able to communicate certain things out to the parties who may need it, right? So using that to inform decisions on things that we're trying to do, or maybe even just some thought processes. If we're sitting around a round table, I think that gives people more insight into the actual application than kind of looking on the outside. Just one of the things that I do, I'm not really big on meetings, but you can tell me anything that you want individually, right? And I let our staff know, like, hey, if there's something that's on your mind, come tell me individually. Just from my own experience as a teacher, as a counselor, as a coach, as an administrator, the majority of the work happens when it's in a one-on-one format, right? Now you feel like you can actually help a person. Not saying that I can't in a group setting, but certain things can get misconstrued in group settings to where people maybe even don't understand what the answer was, or there's something that's missing. But I like the personal connections with people. And I think that's what I used to do in the South, right? So I used to love to go up and talk in a one-on-one base. But if we need to sit down in a meeting structure format, we can do that. But I found that most people feel like they are valued when they are able to speak individually.
Yeah, and I would say that's the same with the student athletes, right? It's like, how are you making connections with all of your kids outside of the allotted practice/competition time? And right, it's easy with some of them that come by the office, or that you have in your class, or you have other points of contact. But how are you figuring out how to connect with those that you don't see all the time? And I think that is always going to be the challenge. It's something that I like everyone else needs to work on. But what strategies do you have for that? Right? If you're not big on meetings, but you're big on individual conversations, how are you finding the time to have all of those conversations to make sure that you are managing all of the relationships?
Yeah, I mentioned our building, or our campus has multiple buildings, 16 buildings on campus, right? So I try to make an effort to go in the building, in every building, at least 5 or 6 times a week, right? So while I'm in the building, feel free to walk up. If there's something that's on your mind, feel free to say anything. I'm also in the cafeteria every single day. So I do bus duty. I'm sorry, I do lunch duty. I do bus duty, right? So just being present and being in the pockets that the student athletes and even the adults, right? So our coaches, some of our teachers and administrators, I'm not a person that's going to sit behind a desk. I like to be out. I like to enjoy conversation. And I believe the only way I can invite people to the gym, but most people don't want to come to the gym because it's so far away. So I just eliminate that and I go wherever the conversation is needed. So if I need to go into the principal's office of every building, I'm totally fine with that. I spend the majority of my time in other buildings. I don't spend a lot of time in my office.
That's such a good reminder. And when I was getting my administrative degree, the principal that I shadowed, one of her deals was she didn't go into office until 10:30. Like she'd get on campus and basically walk around and go to all the classes and check in. And then, because once you get in office, you can't get out. And it's something that I learned 15 years ago. And truth be told, has been forgotten at this point where I don't go to the cafeteria. Like I work through lunch, right? My old office as the activities director was in the student center. It's not there anymore. And so it's like, how can I remind myself based on this conversation, you know what, go sit down in Rosen and work down there. Go do some of these things that you're talking about so that you are more present for the kids that don't go out of their way to see you. So I thank you for that. It's super good, important and a great reminder. How has your approach changed over the years, both as a coach and as an administrator? And I know you're only 10 months in as the top dog, but you've been in the game long enough to know that, like, look, I came in hot and now this is where I'm at, or I didn't come in hot and now I've gotten to this point. But how have you seen yourself shift during your years in education and coaching?
Just one of the things that I did not mention, I'm also a licensed official in the state of Indiana, right? So being an official, being a coach, being a teacher, being an administrator, I try to put all those into one pocket. So if there's something that has changed, let's just take basketball rules. The rules of basketball change every year, right? There's a rules committee. They sit down and they think about certain things, right? That comes from coaches, that comes from ADs, like, hey, this didn't work, or maybe this worked. Well, as an official, we have to take that with all ownership. Nothing personal. We have to just take that and we have to look at the application that we're given to try to make a better outcome, right? So, man, I rely heavily on mentorship. Whether that's, I mentioned earlier the relationship that I have with my principal as far as an administrator, right? I also mentioned my district AD, but there are other people who support things that I'm trying to do. Again, whether that's personal, I have a personal board that I kind of rely on, and then I have a professional board. Justin, I meet with those people often. And it's not a meeting, it's not a big meeting where everybody is invited, but it's just some of those conversations to where, hey, I'm not real sure that I'm doing this correctly from an administrator role. I know how to do this from my personal role, but how do I put those two together? And like I say, I rely heavily on mentorship. I use the NFHS for certain things that I don't know. I use countless groups that I'm like our Indiana High School Athletic Association ADs. We use that. We have a thing called the City Alliance here in Indianapolis, where it's 14 City Alliance ADs, and it's another 14 county ADs, right? So we have those monthly meetings every day, and some of the things that I may or may not be struggling with, some of the other ADs are able to step in and either help facilitate some of those conversations.
Was that a stopping place or do we lose you?
Yeah, it came back in. I don't know what happened. Let's see. Here we go. Yeah. No, I just try to lean on people with various experiences, man, to come up with a philosophy of my own.
No doubt. I think that's super important what you said. You have a personal and a professional board of directors, and that's something that I've actually talked to people about. What does that look like for you, and how are you shaping that board? And one of the things I learned at some point, I don't remember when it was, but it's like, look, if everyone on your personal board of directors has the same opinion, then you don't need all of them. you need a diversity of opinion. That's the point, right? And you're asking like, okay, if I got 5 people I talk to about this situation in my life or this situation at work, and they all have the same opinion, like I only need to talk to one of them. If they have different opinions, then you can find your truth within, right? It's like, okay, I got all these different opinions, and let me figure out what the path is that's authentic for me. So I think, again, that's a great offering that hopefully people can tap into. It's a good reminder for me as well.
Justin, I will also add to that, only for me, my experience, right? I don't need a lot of people. I don't need a lot of board of directors, right? So I may have 5 professional board of directors. I may have 4 professional or 4 personal board of directors, but I don't need to be hearing a lot of conversation, because I think the more conversation that you hear, right, you won't be able to make the decision that you want, because then you'll be trying to please everybody. But I try to keep everything to a minimum for myself.
No doubt. No, I think that's sage advice as well. All right, here's always an interesting one. What have you most recently changed your mind on? Meaning, I used to believe this and I was dug in. Now I'm over here, and here's why. And it doesn't have to be about athletics or coaching. It can be, but it's more of that growth mindset question of like, how are we constantly evolving?
Sure.
I lost you. I see you. I got no sound.
What about now?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that's a great question. Oh, just a second. So, Justin, I think just from how I look at certain things, right? Just because I'm a coach doesn't mean that I can administer the game as an official. Just because I can officiate the game doesn't mean that I can administer the game as a AD, right? So I think every single day we got to learn. Even if we just learn a small portion of what we're doing every single day. But we got to take in account of what we're actually trying to do and put that into our daily process, right? So Nick Saban said it best. In order to be successful, you have to be successful, right? I mean, that resonated with me. A lot of people think, oh, well, I got to go out and I got to do certain things.
I lost you again.
I don't know what's going on here. Keep going in and out. But did you hear when I said about Nick Saban?
Yeah, and then you said a lot of people say blank.
A lot of people think you have to do certain things or a lot of things in order to be successful. No, according to maybe the best college football coach of all time, right? You just got to do the things that you need to do in order to be successful. Nobody knows what that is but you.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that the way in which we can constantly remind ourselves to keep the main thing, narrows the playing field, or whatever cliche we want to use, right? And the more that we grasp at straws and try to add ingredients, sometimes it overwhelms the palate, so to speak, right? So simplicity wins, and how do you keep that the focus is basically what I hear you saying.
No doubt. Yeah. I just don't understand. Sorry about that, Justin. My connection is, I don't know what's going on here.
It's all good. And we got your daughter here too, it sounds like, or your
oh yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So it's all good.
You repeat that question, Justin? I think my connection is better now.
Oh, all I said is it sounded like the gist of what you were saying was simplicity wins and keep the main thing, right? Without all the additional distractions of, oh, let me try this. This might be great, but that doesn't always add value.
Again, I'm born and raised in the South, and the old acronym of KISS, keep it simple, stupid, right? I think that just gets me over the hump. Don't have to be very complex in order to get the same outcome that we're looking for. But as long as we are doing the work the proper way, then outcome will happen.
No doubt. No doubt. All right, last question. And I don't even know the answer, but I'm curious what the answer is going to be, and then I'm gonna have a follow-up. Do y'all have a shot clock in Indiana yet?
No shot clock.
Oh my God.
Surrounding states have shot clock. Illinois has it. I do believe Michigan and maybe Ohio has it. It hasn't came to the Hoosier land yet.
Okay, so the reason I'm asking this, one, as a basketball person, two, as a guy that's a basketball coach and a basketball official, what is the rationale for not having a shot clock in 2023-24?
Oh man, I don't think it's warranted yet in Indiana. I think we'll have to see multiple states implement that. But I do believe it's coming. I just don't know when. And like I say, I think Illinois, Michigan, and maybe even Ohio, I think they have the shot clock. But Justin, we are basketball country. So everything runs through Hoosier land, and some of that tradition is still there. We'll see. I'm going to say on a personal note, I'll give it 5 years. I'll give it 5 years, and then we'll be there.
So hold on. Those of you that are listening, if you don't care about shot clocks, you can tap out at this point, but we're going to go in on this. Here's what I heard you say, Coach. We need to see a few more schools have shot clocks, a few more states. 27 of the 50 states have shot clocks.
Hey,
what is the argument?
We are Hoosier land, so
high school. Hold on. What is the argument that those people that are against shot clocks are making that say, you know what's really good for basketball is the video I saw the other day where it was 20-20 with 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and a kid was kneeling down in the front court dribbling the ball for 4 minutes.
If I was an official for that game, he was how many seconds were left?
It was 4 minutes on the clock.
Ooh, yeah, that's a bit rough. I don't have an answer for that one then. I don't have an answer for that one. But, man, I think it'll be a really good idea to have the shot clock here. I'm waiting for it. Can't wait. But I just don't think it's going to happen in the near future.
I get it. I know Indiana, y'all are purists and you want to hold on to, you probably want the old key too, the one that was in Hoosiers, but that's okay.
hey, we got it somewhere. I'm pretty sure we got it.
All right, Coach, this has been fun. Anything else to add before we go?
And, Justin, it was a pleasure to be here. It was a pleasure. And I'm glad that you thought highly enough of me to give me an opportunity to come on your platform. So I definitely appreciate you there. But just want to tell all the young aspiring athletes, what you see is not what you will be. So the NBA is probably not the option. Not saying that it's not an option, but also don't put all of your beans into one basket, right? Be open. Have a wealth of knowledge, have a wealth of understanding, and go out and be whatever it is that you want to be.
Yeah, no doubt. And I would say we're not ready to sign off because I do want to point something else out. When I asked you what it was different about being from the South and being from the Midwest, and you said, you know what, where I grew up, you could just talk to everybody. Yeah. And we met, ironically enough, for those of you that are listening and are aware, we met at a Nomad social event that, and I'm going to let you answer what it is, but it's basically, it's a It's an organization supporting minorities in athletic administration, etc. And I roll in as the probably the one non-person of color in this group. And the first person to say what's up to me is Ed. And I'm sitting around like, I fit in, it's all good. But from an optics standpoint, I don't. Talk a little bit about the importance of affinity spaces and also continuing to be welcome in those affinity spaces based on what you're trying to do with them.
Now, Justin, now you're absolutely right. So we met at an impromptu location, right? And what I saw was just a person coming in. Don't know if he was looking for direction or not, but came in. He appeared to be logical, right? He appeared to want to be a part. So I just took it up on myself and to start the conversation, right? You may or may not have felt belonging there, but just my personality. And this is what, I learned as a youngster in Arkansas, there's value in everybody. There's value in everybody. Maybe I can learn from you, maybe I can't, but we never would have known if I didn't start the conversation. Hey, Justin, how you doing, man? So now, man, just having that, again, just giving people the ability to be themselves. We were both in a location. We're trying to mingle with people, trying to understand, trying to see what experiences are. I just want to see who you are.
No doubt. Well, I appreciate it. And I think it's a great reminder that when you are the person in a setting that is comfortable, to reach out to other people that may be new there and welcome them in with open arms, regardless of what the situation is. And I appreciate you for doing that in that moment.
I appreciate it, Justin. I appreciate you having me, man. Good luck to you the rest of the season. And hopefully you all get some of this cold weather that we have.
Yeah, that ain't going to happen, but that's why I live where I live. All right, dude.